Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Greg Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video for today, Tuesday, April 16th. If you're joining me for the very first time, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they ultimately ended up turning out. After that, we'll get moved over to RotoWire and talk about the weather report for today. Looks like only one game that will have a little bit of weather concerns. And then after that, we'll get moved over to FanDuel, talk about my core picks. It's going to be one pitcher, four hitters, and that's going to be based on a combination of recent performance and past history versus their respective opponents. And then after that, we'll get moved over to my cheat sheet for today. That is going to be up on the Sports Affiliation website, so definitely be sure to check that out over there. It is 100% free, and we'll be talking about my top GPP teams to stack for tonight's slate overall. But without further ado, we'll get started with a recap of yesterday's picks. So at the pitcher position, we went Martin Perez, $8,000. Only got to 11 points yesterday, so technically he was a miss. He did not pitch terrible. He just didn't have many strikeouts. Gave up a couple too many hits. If he had a couple extra outs, he would have got the quality start at least. But just wasn't the day we were looking for out of him. Obviously, he was a pay down option at pitcher. If you went to some of the pay up options at pitcher, you might have had a little bit better luck on yesterday's slate overall, though. And then at second base, we had Jorge Polanco. He's $2,500. He got to 38.1 points yesterday, so a really, really good day for him overall. He was one of the better hitters on yesterday's slate overall, especially from a point per dollar value. And it was his best day of the season so far, so definitely a good call there. And then at third base, we had Nolan Arenado, $3,000, got 12.5, so it did ultimately end up giving him a hit. And then the last two guys that we had were our outfielders. We had Fernando Tatis Jr., $3,800. Only got 6.5, so I had to give him a miss. He finished 0 for 4 with one walk and an RBI, so not the greatest day for him overall. Obviously, you're looking for more out of him at that higher price tag of $3,800. And then Brian Reynolds at $3,400. Just got 3 points out of him yesterday, so he was a miss as he only went 1 for 4 yesterday. So not the greatest day overall. Obviously, we had Jorge Polanco there. If you had a good pitcher alongside Jorge Polanco, you still probably had a chance to cash in with this line overall. Kind of a weird day yesterday. A lot of the teams that I did like as stacks yesterday really didn't end up panning out. So it was an interesting day overall. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to RotoWire and talk about that weather report for tonight's slate. So once again, there is only truly one game with some other concerns tonight. That is going to be the Chicago White Sox and the Kansas City Royals. This game is in Chicago. There's a 47% chance of rain. Expected to be very windy down there as well, which is kind of similar to the weather up here in Wisconsin today. So we'll see what happens with this game as it moves along. Looks like that wind's really going to be blowing in, so probably not getting to too many hitters in this game just in general, if it does ultimately end up going off either way. And then in terms of all the other games, they're either in a dome or have 0% chance of rain, so not concerned about any of the other games whatsoever. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks over there. So once again, in terms of the core picks, it's going to be one pitcher, four hitters. It's going to be based on a combination of past performance versus their respective opponent and recent performances as well. We're going to start off at the pitcher spot with Dylan Cease. He's $9,500. Going to get some Milwaukee Brewers today. He is off to a pretty good start this year for the San Diego Padres, averaging about 37 fantasy points. Typically we're looking for about 40 out of these guys. Has that decent history versus the Milwaukee Brewers in the past, although it is some limited history at that. He did have 40 points versus them in 2023. He's only got the one win on the season. Hopefully ups it to 2 tonight. And his ERA is currently sitting right at 2.16, which is a really good sign for him so far to start the year. Hopefully he continues the strong performance tonight versus that Milwaukee Brewers team. Like I said, a little bit of history there. It's been pretty good so far, and he did have that 40 points versus them in 2023. Then at catcher/first base, we're going to go with Will Smith at $3,100. And he's off to a really strong start for this season. He's hitting .369, 1 home run, 15 RBIs, averaging just under 11 fantasy points per game. Goes against Patrick Corbin tonight. Not a long list of history here, but he is 1 for 3 versus him. And if you look at Will Smith, what he's done on the season so far, in his last 10 games, he's got at least 1 hit and 7 out of them. He's played 17 games in total on the season, has at least 1 hit in 13 of them, and 6 multi-hit games so far on the season. So, like the upside he could present tonight. Hopefully he gets that second home run tonight, which would really help us out in a pretty big way. But I do like this Dodgers team quite a bit versus Patrick Corbin because Patrick Corbin's really struggled in recent seasons. So Will Smith's going to be looking to lead the charge for this Dodgers team overall tonight. And since we were talking about it too, I'm just going to throw this out there too. One of the guys on the Dodgers, if he ends up in the starting lineup, Miguel Rojas. He's eligible at like second base, shortstop, and third base, I think, now on FanDuel. He has 3 home runs in his career and some pretty good batting average versus Patrick Corbin. So if he ends up in that starting lineup, he's a very, very sneaky play. But back to our core picks, we're going to go down to Manny Machado. who is $3,200 going against the Milwaukee Brewers tonight. It is Wade Miley on the mound. He is 5 for 16 with 2 home runs versus Wade Miley in his career. If you look at what Manny Machado has done as of late, he's on a 9-game hitting streak. He has 4 multi-hit games during that time frame. So definitely do like his upside that he can present tonight overall. 263 average, 4 home runs, 11 RBIs, averaging just over 11 fantasy points per game on the season. I think he has a good chance of outperforming that tonight, going against Wade Miley, who he has had some success against in the past. And I'm just going to skip all the way down to our utility spot because I had a really hard time deciding between Manny Machado and Austin Riley tonight, so I did throw both them in the court. Some I typically don't do with these positions. I don't typically like making one of the core picks the utility spot, but I felt right doing it tonight. We have Austin Riley. He is going against the Houston Astros tonight. It's Hunter Brown on the mound, who's been terrible to start the season. So would not be surprised if the Braves have a really good night once again. He has 2 for 3 versus Hunter Brown in his career. He's on a 9-game hitting streak as well. And then 3 of those games have been multi-hit games. So even just talking between him and Machado, it's like both have pretty good history versus their respective matchups. Both are currently on 9-game hitting streaks. I gave Manny Machado probably the edge because he's a little bit cheaper and he does have 4 multi-hit games during that 9-game span, where Austin Riley only has 3, but definitely like both quite a bit tonight. Austin Riley is hitting .292 on the season, 2 home runs, 12 RBIs, and 13 fantasy points per game. So definitely think he has a good chance of outperforming that once again tonight as well. And then last but not least, we have a little bit of pay down option in the outfield in Andrew McCutchen. He is $2,700. He's going against the New York Mets tonight. It's Jose Quintana on the mound. And Andrew McCutchen is 7 for 24 with 1 home run versus Jose Quintana in his career. Not been the greatest start to the season for McCutchen, so we're not going to talk too much about that, but he is on a modest 2-game hitting streak, double-digit performances in his past 2 games, just over 9 in the game before that with 2 walks and a run scored, so looking a little bit better as of late. Take that with a grain of salt. Just kind of a pay down option here tonight that does have some decent history versus Jose Quintana. Hopefully this is the start to kind of the hot streak for Andrew McCutchen just in general, though. With that being said, if you look at what he's done this season, it's 205 average, 1 home run, 5 RBIs, and he's averaging just under 11 fantasy points per game. Like I said, it's been a little bit better as of late, so the upside's still definitely there, but it's been a little bit more hit or miss to start the season. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do currently have listed here, you have $12,900 remaining, just over $3,200 per player. So a good amount of money left over, whether you want to pay up for a couple guys, pay down at a couple different spots. It's going to be a lot of interesting pay down options available today, especially if you get some of these guys that do have some pretty good history versus their respective opponents that maybe are not everyday starters like your Miguel Rojas or a Jace Peterson who's hit Kyle Hendricks pretty well in the past as well. I like 9 for 20 with 2 home runs versus him. So if those guys end up starting, there are going to be some pretty interesting value options. And then obviously it gives us some room and flexibility to pay up from there. Otherwise, we're looking at maybe a little bit more of a balanced lineup tonight, getting to some Dodgers, getting to some Braves, maybe even getting to some Padres tonight. But with all that being said, let's get moved over to the cheat sheet and talk about my top GPP teams to stack for tonight overall. Once again, the cheat sheet is 100% free. It's up on the Sports Affiliation website. So definitely be sure to check that out there Monday through Friday on the daily. Definitely a good resource as you're starting out your lineup building process. But the top GPP teams that I do have to stack for today, these 4 teams are going to look like really, really familiar names because they're the same 4 teams as yesterday. Unfortunately, they didn't pan out the greatest yesterday, but yesterday there was not a lot of history on the slate. We'll see if that kind of is a little bit different on tonight's slate overall, as it does ultimately end up playing out. But we're going to start off at the Arizona Diamondbacks. They're going against Kyle Hendricks. As I kind of mentioned before, Jace Peterson, if he ends up starting, has really good history versus Kyle Hendricks, 9 for 20 with 2 home runs in his career versus him. So if he starts, second base, shortstop, third base, wherever they want to play him, could be a very interesting play tonight. And then, you're looking at some of these other Diamondbacks hitters, Christian Walker, Lourdes Gurriel, a couple other guys here and there that could do very well versus Kyle Hendricks. They have done pretty well versus him in the past. And then we have the Atlanta Braves going against Hunter Brown. Not a long list history there, but Hunter Brown's been terrible to start off the season. Getting into some Austin Riley, some Ronald Acuna, some Ozzie Albies makes a lot of sense on tonight's slate overall. And then we have the Dodgers going against Patrick Corbin. So Patrick Corbin's been one of the worst pitchers in all of baseball past 2 or 3 seasons. So there is a lot of upside there. Oddly enough, the Dodgers are not like the team that's gone out of their way and hit him the best, but it's not bad history at that either. So I still think there's a lot of upside there tonight. It makes a lot of sense to get to the guys like Will Smith, Mookie Betts, some of the maybe other cheaper options on the Dodgers. Like I mentioned, if Miguel Rojas starts tonight, he looks like an excellent value play at $2,300. It's like 15 for 35 with 3 home runs in his career versus Patrick Corbin. So that's about as good as it gets. One of those home runs I know for sure happened last season versus Patrick Corbin. And then last but not least, we have the Kansas City Royals going against Jonathan Cannon, making his MLB debut for the Chicago White Sox. So could be a pretty favorable one there. Didn't really work out too much versus Nick Nostrami last night, but could bounce back in a big way for this Royals team tonight. Although I am a little bit more pessimistic because Cannon had at least been pitching well in AAA, although he does have lower prospect pedigree than Nick Nostrami, who did end up pitching yesterday. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I have in terms of the recap, the weather report, the core picks, and the top GPP stacks for today, April 16th. As always, if you have any questions related to MLB DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comments, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. And then with that being said, any updates that do come out throughout the day, I will be trying to lead them as best as possible down in the comments, whether it's an update to my core, whether, it's like a rain delay, a rain out, or, like a starting pitcher changing or anything else like that. And then I will also be listing all these starting lineups as much as possible down in the comments up until the point of like baseball practice tonight, and then trying to get to a couple of those lineups between then and lock at the same time as well. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking it out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Greg Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. And right now we have MLB DFS in terms of the core pick videos Monday through Friday, and then also once a week I am putting out that UFL DFS pick video as well. So definitely be on the lookout for that if that's something that's of interest to you as well. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS, Prize Picks, and Parlay Play. If you are a brand new user on any one of those 3 sites, when you sign up, you make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus. For Parlay Play and Prize Picks, it's a 100% match on your initial deposit up to $100. And then for BetUS, it's a 125% match on your initial deposit up to $2,500. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. And then with that being said, if you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Greg Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight.